I got my microphone working this time, so I'm able to do this. Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a great evening. I'm Wendy James, and I'm so excited to talk about tarot. It's my full-time career. I am a professional psychic, and I have clients. I've been doing this for almost 28 years, and I have an incredible client base. And I read almost anything I can get my hands on. I've been hired to work at amazing places, reading shoes. I've read perfume for clients at some very elite establishments. I have read lots of different things, and I've taught classes for over 20 years in psychic development, in how to read different tools. And one of the things that I always do, all these years later, I have such a massive collection of tarot decks. I have so many. But whenever I get a new deck, I take the cards and I look at, say, just for example, the Fool card, and I compare the art on the new deck to several decks of tarot that I have Fool cards, just to see how the artist is portraying the message of that card. And I do that with lots of different cards. I really get excited, like some of my favorite cards. I love the Hangman. I love the Tower. I love the art on the death cards often. And I love so many different cards in tarot. So I thought, just for a unique perspective about tarot, that I would go through the top 22, the Higher Arcane, and really go into sort of a comparison of several of each of the, say, the Fool cards. Again, we'll look at a whole bunch of different decks, Fool cards. And I thought I'd start with the first three cards in the Fool's Journey. The Higher Arcane is a set of 22 cards that are a story. They're a story of the cycles of life. They're the story of repetitive cycles that we create in our daily life, our yearly life, our relationships, always going in circles, going in cycles, starting at beginnings, working through, having to face ourselves, coming out the other side of it, and upon completion or conclusion, we then start a cycle again. So the Fool card, interestingly so, when I say that there are 22 cards in the Fool's Journey, there's 78 cards in a traditional tarot deck. 56 of them are very similar to a traditional playing deck of cards. You have your four suits, and then you have, instead of three face cards, you have four face cards in each suit in tarot. And that's what makes up 56 of the lower arcane, it's called. But then we have the higher arcane here, and these are a story, a beautiful, beautiful story from 0 to card 21. And the 0 card is the beginning card. It's the Fool card. So I've laid out the cards we're going to look at this evening, but now I'm just going to take the Fool card, just the Fool card alone, out of each of these ones that I've laid out here, and we're going to look at them separate from the rest of their decks. We're just going to look at the unique artwork on the Fool card. We're going to look at how it compares to other artists' renderings of their Fool card, and we're going to talk about, of course, the meaning of the Fool card, because again, a lot of people, when they want to learn tarot, they become rather overwhelmed by thinking that they have to memorize 78, and in some decks even more, cards' meanings. But it's not about memorizing the meaning per se of the card. If you understand the story of the cards, the structure of tarot, how it's made, why it's made the way it is, what is the backbone of tarot. This light is very shiny on these cards, and it's not showing up so well on the camera here, I don't think. So I'm going to adjust the light for a minute. But I'm first going to lay out I don't know how many I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I pulled out 12 different decks, unique tarot decks. And for the life of me, I'm telling you, I can't remember the names of each of these decks. And that's okay. Because what we're really going to be looking at is the artist's rendition of those cards. So I'm going to get up from my seat for a second. I'm going to turn down. I've got a light behind here that I think is just making it a little too shiny. I'm not sure if that helps. Hi, it's really curious. I'm not sure if it helps. But the Fool card is the first card in this 22 card story. And in all your tarot decks, the Fool card will have the number 0. Let me put this here. Let the camera adjust to it. Oh, I'm just getting used to this. There's your 0. See the number 0? Oh, come on, camera. Give her. What? Come on, camera. Well, there's a 0 on all of them. These are all Fool cards. Every one of these cards, if you're relying on the book, what is the book definition of the 0 card in tarot, titled The Fool. It's numbered 0 because 0 sits exactly in the very center of the numeric system, right? If we go to one side of 0, we're in the negatives. And if we go to the other side of 0, we're in the positives. So when we look at, again, the cycling nature of the lessons of tarot and the structure of how tarot is made, 0 is in the very center of an endless line, right? You can go forever out through the negative numbers and forever out into the positive numbers as well. And 0 is completely empty as well. It is referenced as almost an emptiness, a starting from nothing, the epic beginning of all that is, sort of representation, the emptiness of the 0 alone. So in that, we look at as the Fool card represents a beginning, a new beginning, the first few steps, the birth, the beginning of any cycle. It could be quite literally the beginning of someone's life, and they're going to go through the epic story of the tarot through their life. It could be the beginning of a new project in your life, the beginning of a new relationship, the beginning of overcoming things, the beginning of anything, really. It's just a start. And each one of these cards is beautifully artistically done. Each of them are the Fool card. So what I enjoy, the traditional image of the Fool card, which I should have grabbed probably, the standard, very traditional Fool card from the the Ryder Waite deck, has an image of a gentleman skipping along. He's got a stick he's holding with a little satchel on his back. Let me see if any of these cards have even that look. They don't. Hang on. I'm going to go get a regular tarot deck. Well, I'm digging and digging here through many, many tarot decks, and I keep my tarot decks all in silk bags and cloth bags and unique boxes and things. And I don't know where my traditional tarot deck is. This is Aleister Clawley. Go on, sir. Step aside, sir. He is, well, I guess he's going to lay on top of the cards for a moment till I put him out of the room. So I'm digging on a shelf, which it would be fun to bring you. That's Aleister kicking something off of the desk. So the traditional Fool card has a gentleman kind of skipping along. He's got a stick with a little bag hanging off the stick of all his worldly goods just held in this stick. Actually, I am going to look for that other deck, and I guess I'll just leave you here with Aleister, Mr. Claw, and he, I suppose, will charm and entertain you while I go dig for my traditional just Ryder weight deck, because I do think that the Fool card on that deck is so traditional. It's easy to explain the meaning of the card and then to carry forth into these artist renderings. Once you start collecting decks, you can't stop. The more I read tarot and the more I collect decks, the more I want, the more I see. This is a very traditional, this is called the Ryder weight deck. It's the most classical deck that most people see in, like if you're learning tarot or if you're starting to study tarot. It is a great deck to start with. My personal opinion of it is I've just been doing it for so many years. I do get a bit bored with just this deck. I read anyway with several decks per reading. I just grab a whole bunch, at least 3 to 5 decks I read for each client. But I'm searching right now just to look for that classic Fool card. Finally, Allie is. Oh, I guess he's just going to plop his little rump right down on top of our cards. I will be removing him once I find the Fool card. But the Ryder weight deck is the most common deck. There are so many neat decks. If you're into cats, here, go on, Allie. If you're into cats, there's so many tarot decks just with cat imagery. There's decks with everything from vampires to sensual decks to people who are favoring flowers. There's ones for earth-based practitioners. There's decks that are fairly kind of angular and geometric and not a lot of imagery. And then here's the Fool. I found you. There's so many different decks, really. If you are going to dive into learning tarot, or if you're going to expand in your knowledge of tarot, don't ever hesitate to get a deck that's different than maybe what everybody else is using. We are being stalked by my cat again, so he's probably going to come back in, and I might have to remove him from the room. But while we're waiting for him to intrude, here is the traditional Fool card in the Ryder Waite deck. Here we have this innocent, pardon me, this innocent seeming individual skipping away, and with all their worldly goods, everything they care about is, hi, it's nice to see you. Bless you too. I'm glad you're here. Oh, I'm so glad it's you out there. And we had just talked about this tarot a little bit earlier today. So this little guy, he's about to embark on the beginning of the story. It's the 0 card, so we're at the very beginning of the story. Our little fool is the main character through the whole upper part of the tarot, the 22 upper cards. It's called the Fool's Journey, the whole thing. But he's on his way. He's embarking on his trip. All his worldly goods are carried in this little bag hanging off this stick that he's got. He's got white flower representing purity in his hands, the innocence and purity. He hasn't learned the hard way through life yet. He's got a little companion here by his side. It's a little dog in this image. Sometimes in some cards you'll see a lion biting his thigh, or there'll be some kind of animal often running alongside, not in all decks, but in many, running alongside, trying to warn him that in all of his glory and all of his ambition to get out and start his journey, because of his naivety and his inability to know the twists and turns of life or the scary stuff that can happen, he's literally about to walk off of a cliff. And his little companion, who is smaller than him, but seemingly much wiser than him, is trying to warn him and stop him. This card, the Fool, represents the innocence of youth, how we all are when we embark on a journey and are starting out with no information, no knowledge. We really are in a position of, we can be very excited about it, but we also sometimes don't have the wisdom of what to be cautious of or not. Much like, say, a child, when they're young and their ball bounces across the road, all they're running for is that ball. They want to go get the ball. And they're not thinking, they don't have the wisdom or the life experience yet under their belt to be wary of traffic, to be careful that it's a dangerous place. And that's what the Fool card represents, is the naivety of not knowing yet, the excitement of the newness of the journey, the beginning where you're going for it with everything you've got without necessarily taking anyone else's advice. Again, remember, the companion in some of the traditional cards by his side is trying to get his attention to stop him from careening off of a cliff. So every single one of these cards in a book about tarot all have the exact same meaning. But if you look at them, you might not easily see all of that meaning in them, which is why I always enjoy comparing several of the same cards from many, many, many different decks to see what the artist is trying to tell us. Especially when you get a new deck, it's really great to go through and really look at the whole story, the Fool's Journey, card 0 up to card 21, and check out how the artist of your unique deck was trying to express themselves through the traditional story with their own artist's touch. This card I particularly like for the Fool card because it shows an egg. Again, we're talking about the birth of something new. Oh, you see, my cat has jarred the camera even at this point. I see. There he is. Alistair. The beast. So in this artist's rendering, this is called the Voodoo Tarot. And I got this deck from somebody, oh my gosh, maybe, I don't know, 18 years ago. They were terrified of it. Somebody had gifted it to them, and I had a store at the time, and they came in and they asked if they could exchange this voodoo deck for one of the decks I was selling. And I had lots of tarot decks for sale, and I was so happy to do an exchange for them. And it was than the owner of this really interesting, really neat deck of cards. What I love about this representation of the Fool card, the new beginning, is the egg, especially inside, apparently, the mouth of the snake or dragon, because there is like hair coming off the face of this this scaled creature here. And oftentimes in the representation in tarot, the snakes are representative of the link between the earth and the spirit world. Often, they're earthly creatures. They crawl upon the earth itself, and they are very powerful in representation of coming of the earth. Again, say growing from the earth, being brought from and brought forward from the earth. And then the egg, the newness, new beginnings, fresh starts. That's the message of and innocence, right? Anything unborn, anything still within its egg does not know how to manage the exterior world out in front of it. This deck, it's the Celtic Dragon Tarot, maybe. Again, I don't remember the names of my tarot decks, and I'm sorry if I'm saying them wrong. This has a beautiful image. I just want to get it so you can see it. That light is not helping. There's an individual looking at a castle. They've got a very light pack on their back. They have a companion. I'm going to put my glasses on for this. They have a companion by their side. There is a little dog, which we'll often see in the Fool card. Let me see. This is a little dog on the ground right there next to this individual. The individual is not carrying a whole lot of weight. They're not carrying a lot of heavy baggage. Again, heavy baggage would represent in the symbolism of tarot that you've been on a journey already, right? This is a light bit of carrying, not a heavy burden yet. This is the newness, the freshness, the innocence of a new beginning, not weighted down by the realities of life yet. Tarot is a really amazing tool, and it speaks to us through deep subconscious symbolism. That's why it's lasted through all of this time and why it's so powerful as a divination tool. It's an extremely complex tool, and the more you know about it, the easier it is to read, the more it makes sense to you, and the more you start to understand the cycles of our own lives. In this artist's depiction, I'll show you the back of the deck so you can see the deck of cards. This may be the Celtic Dragon deck. We have this fellow, and he's sitting here, and he's got several little dragons flying around him. And in the card, he has several different pathways he can choose. Right now, he's literally just standing quite literally at the fork in the road, trying to make decisions of which direction he's going to go. He's just started his journey, and he already has the beginning of choices to make. He's got a light outfit on. He's not dressed in armor or heavy gear. He's got very little belongings with him because, of course, it's a fresh new journey. He hasn't accumulated a lot with him in his story yet. In this card, very subtly in the back, the artist has added overseer dragons. There's dragons between the trees, peeking and watching him as he starts his journey, using the power of choice, the power of his own choice, to embark on his journey. Again, newness, fresh starts, new beginnings. This card's a little wacky for the Fool card. It's showing a clown with 3 legs. It's showing, let me look at this up close, actually. Yeah. A clown that seems to have a doll in its hand, a very light scepter in the other hand. There's butterflies flying around. It's light. It is showing I think the clown is trying to represent a childish lightness or a whimsical, carefree mindset, possibly, in this artist's rendering of the Fool card. It's distinctively brighter blue on one side and darker on the other. Controversy or contrast possibly being represented there. And in this card, he does have a little furry friend. A little, ooh, I'm so sorry. I'm still getting used to how to do this. A little dog at his feet, a little furry dog. Again, this companion that is going for the journey along with the fool, almost as the caretaker or the watcher, overseer, to make sure that that little guy is going to be safe, warning him. Again, in this traditional card, he's about to literally walk right off a cliff. This is a beautiful deck of cards. And this fool has a companion. There's a dog. Ooh, my gosh, Wendy. Right there. It looks like almost a German Shepherd dog. This fool is playful. A lot of the things, the items that we see further into the tarot deck are represented here. The lamp is on the ground. You see that in the Hermit card a little bit later into the deck. The fool is dropping a bunch of photographs, photo images, carefree, letting them just fall to the ground. I think this artist in this specific card, the fool has little bells around the bottom of their pant leg, that playful, whimsical, court jester, carefree imagery here, represented in the bells and all of this. And I believe kind of just letting the photographs fall to the floor, not having a care, not giving a care. But really, if we look at the surroundings around this individual in this card, it looks like a fairly oppressive environment. There are mountains and giant valleys. There is a waterfall. And the fool is sitting on this little soft, like standing on this little soft pad, almost as if they're about to leave a very safe, comfortable place to embark on a journey, which is, again, the meaning of the Fool card. We're about to begin. We're about to embark on a journey. This card is wild. This is from a deck called the Ryder Tarot. It's the back of the deck. It is the very first tarot deck I ever owned, and I bought it in the late 80s. And the deck is no longer in print. And interesting, I bought it for $25 from a gift certificate I had. And it's a really neat story, the way this deck came into my life, truly. And it is the reason that I became a professional psychic, is this specific deck. But this deck is very hard to read. It was the very first deck I had, and I will admit, to learn tarot for the very first time, the Ryder Tarot was very, very confusing for me, because I had also bought a tarot deck, and the tarot deck was fashioned after the Ryder Waite deck. And I was trying to learn how to read tarot for my first time with this incredible, very complex artist's deck, Ryder Tarot, with a book that was trying to explain the traditional cards, the traditional Ryder Waite descriptions. And I found that very difficult. So what I ended up doing was getting a Ryder Waite deck and doing what I'm doing now, comparing each of the cards as I went through and learned, comparing how this artist was trying to represent the Fool's Journey, or whatever card it was in the Ryder deck. It is a very interesting deck. And as I go along with this series about comparing the cards, this particular deck is really going to jump out as unique, very complex pieces of art, sometimes seemingly not on topic, though obviously to the artist, it was very on topic. We have Hebrew lettering here. We have our 0 for our starting card, 0, again, the center of the numeric system. We have what appears to be a tiger's head emerging out of an alligator's mouth, out of one half of this clown-like face. And we have another half of the face that is a bit like a parrot doll. A bit more whimsical. We see a classic, typical jester's bell on the top here of this head. There seems to be a feather. It looks almost like of a grouse or something of that nature here. And then we have lots of very interesting words written on the piece of paper in the back here of this card. The artist for this deck hid lots of messages in the backdrop of this one single card. We have the Fool here. We have lots of different words written on here. Boy. And I'm not going to look all them up right now. There's imagery here of the Lovers Symbolism. There's a snake crawling on the ground. It's talking about different cards, courage and a new journey. Willingness to risk, it says on here. Willingness to risk. That innocence of the child, not being afraid of outcome, to be able to burst forth with the strength that you need to embark on something new without being blocked by fear of all of the possibilities. Again, that is the large message of the Fool card, is that willingness to start, willingness to go forward. I have this awesome little deck here. This is from the Housewives Tarot. The back is very traditional. In the front, and we have this little lady. She's scurrying along off the top of a roof. She's carrying stuff, but it's really, she's in such a hurry, a whimsical hurry here, that things are just falling from her arms. She's got a big smile on her face. Truly, she could not give two cares that she's dropping all of her belongings. She is just heading out. She's pulling things out of her purse, leaving them go in her little thrusting effort to embark out into wherever she needs to go in her life. So excited and with such innocence that it does appear that the next step she puts weight to the bottom of her shoe, she will tumble end over tea kettle off of the top of her roof. Again, part of the message, oh my gosh, how do I do this here? Part of the message of the Fool card is to not be so gung-ho that you forget to make sure you're creating firm footing underneath you. It is one of the big messages when the Fool card comes up, is to slow down, make sure that you know where you're going, that you're careful-footed, to go ahead and be excited, but to also use and try and find wisdom. If you don't have the expertise yet, it might behoove you to research a little bit and get some of the expertise before embarking aggressively out into your journey, for fear, again, that your innocence could cause you to stumble. This Fool card is beautiful. We have a young lady walking along. She is about to walk right off the edge of the classic cliff that we see individuals walking off of. It's a really far drop in this card. She's dropping right down. There's pine trees at the bottom. So this cliff she's about to walk off is very up high. And she's kind of just throwing her head back. It looks like she's dropping little seeds or flowers out of the little basket in her hand. In this artist's card, it's interesting. There is no companion walking with her. It's a beautiful sunny day. There does look to be a spiral or a labyrinth of a sort on the ground below, most likely representing a journey or the lessons within a journey, I would assume. And she's barefoot, carefree, flowing dress, beautiful day. But again, in one more step, this little young lady in this Fool card is going to walk directly off the end of a cliff. This, I believe, is called the Harvest Tarot, but I don't recall. I'm not sure. And we go to Aleister Crowley, not to challenge my cat, Aleister Clawley. This is the Thoth TOTH deck. Very popular deck to tarot readers. Very popular, very aggressive deck. I have found this to be a message right between your eyes deck. There's no real softness or beating around the bush with this deck. This is got a lot of magical symbolism within it. This deck is extremely complex. Each card can give you lots and lots of neat things to research and look up. If you notice in this card, we have a tiger or a lion, a big cat, biting into the gentleman's thigh. As I referenced, sometimes you will have this innocent guy, very similar to him, walking off a cliff with a lion or a beast of some kind biting his thigh, trying to get his attention before he embarks on flying out into the world and just stumbling due to innocence, right? We have purity represented in a dove in the upper corner here. We have this swirling sort of tubery stuff ensnaring this character already as he embarks on his journey. There's a butterfly in the background, always representing transformation. When we see butterflies psychically, when we see them in our dreams, when we see them in tarot cards, many times it is asking yourself, where on the butterfly's journey am I? Am I a caterpillar? Am I in a cocoon phase? Am I sitting outside of my cocoon, letting my wings dry before taking off? Or am I beautifully in flight, fully transformed? Or am I coming to the closure of my story, having had transformed, ready to re-embark on a new journey at the end of the story? So butterflies are extremely powerful symbolism. There's so many things going on in this card. We've got a couple embracing way under here. There's what looks almost like ovaries sort of in this little piece here. And again, I'm not going to overanalyze or spend too much time delving into the power of the Thoth deck. Again, something you can study. I mean, just each card is full of amazing symbols. Inside every one of these dots in this part of the card are, I think, witches' runes. I'm pretty sure those are symbolisms of witches' runes or Hebrew, and I don't know for sure. And it's worth studying. I have studied it in my past. I don't remember all the details. My life mate, Daryl, and I got so into the Thoth deck that we studied the symbolism of each and every card of that deck for months and had dialogue about it. I mean, to some people, that would sound like the most boring couple on the planet. But to us, it was an adventure, and we learned so much. Always filling that pool of knowledge we have inside of us. When you learn stuff, you don't have to remember everything you learned. Know that your subconscious will remember it, and if it's meant to be part of a message or part of a psychic experience, your subconscious will pull forward any of the interesting information that it has been fed to give you the symbolism or the message that you need. This is a very disturbing card from a very disturbing deck of cards. Again, no joke. It's very difficult in this artist's rendering of this card to understand what they were saying and how it compares to the classic message in the Ryder Waite card. But this is the Fool card. It is the number 0 in this deck. And we have a very thin, unhealthy appearing individual, not cloaked in any clothing. The back of this deck looks like this. If you're ever wondering what deck it is, I don't remember the name of it, but there's a lot of very strange, weird imagery in this deck as well. We have what seems to be a lot of gold and shiny and gaudiness with all kinds of symbols over on this side. There's just triangles, there's swirls, there's wavy lines and circles with dots, circles without dots. There's different unique imagery, all in like a gold print on this side. And the side that is behind this character is very bland, very plain. not bright in coloring at all. And there is this sort of individual who's between the two, the elaborate, the ornate, sort of the place of discovery, and sort of the emptiness and nothingness from which they came. And this person is covering their eyes, always to me, very symbolic in tarot, whether I can see the face of the individual in the card or not. This, to me, is the furthest card of the examples that I have here representing the Fool that I think is in the grouping that I have here. This one is confusing, but it does have some symbolism to it that looks like a traditional Fool card. This one is very hard for me to find the meaning, which is another reason why, upon getting a new tarot deck, if it has very unique and curious art to it, it will help your subconscious hold in memory which cards are which by going through this process of taking, say, the Fool card out and comparing it to the other decks of tarot you may have, or looking in a book at what the traditional image is and seeing how this artist is trying to portray this message. This tarot deck is awesome, and I love this image of the Fool card. This woman is stepping right out. She's got a walking staff. She's got a very light pouch by her side. She's wearing sandals, so she's clearly not going to be climbing a mountain in her mind's eye. She's stepping out of the door, apparently, say maybe of her safe abode, going down the steps, and interestingly so, it drops off above the world. Like her home just literally drops off. She's walking out into the whole world. And I think this is a beautiful artistic concept of the Fool card, the Zero card in tarot, is this beautiful description. And instead of calling it the Fool, this artist has decided to title this card New Beginnings, which is very much what the Fool card represents. As I've said several times over and over, it is a new beginning, a fresh start, represented by the egg symbolism, new birth, new beginnings, the innocence, embarking on the journey, the purity of it, out from your sense of security, your innocence, and into the greater world and all of its beautiful, beautiful lessons and messages, but also all of its trappings and nooks and crannies where lessons are learned through hard times or tough times. This individual to me, though, doesn't look as, say, innocent, say, if it were a child embarking out there. This person to me doesn't seem naive at all in the card. They may not be prepared, like I say, for stormy weather or for a mountainous area, but this has a maturity to it, which I find interesting in how this artist decided to depict the messages of the Fool card in that card. And then we have this tarot deck, very common, very popular. Again, I don't remember the name of it. And this little guy is as cute as can be. His companion in this card is a hawk. He's got a hawk overseeing, watching. The hawk is just standing there watching him, about to walk right off the edge of the cliff. This guy is barefoot. He is wearing like clothing made out of animal skins. He is skipping. He's got a innocent little look on his face. He's sort of celebrating like the rising sun over here in the background. And truly, his next step will cause him to tumble and fall right down the mountainside. But he doesn't care. He can't see it. And he is still going to continue forth, walking forward with purity and innocence. Thus, again, by looking at many different artists' depiction of one single tarot card, you create a very expansive understanding, new pathways, innocence, not a lot of carrying of heavy cares, new beginnings, the purity. Sometimes having a companion or others around you who might want to give you advice, such as the companions in these cards, that the Fool is not willing to take at this time. Sometimes when a Fool card comes up in a reading, it can lean into someone needing to stop, maybe seeking a little more advice, a little more directive, maybe researching a little bit more. Possibly for that person to make sure that they have everything packed that they need for this new adventure in their life. And if they don't, to maybe be cautious and not run so quickly right at the very beginning, but to be a bit more mindful of where you're placing your footsteps so as not to, in innocence, make large mistakes where you have to loop around, circle back around, or restart. So that's the Fool card. And it just made me excited while I was rummaging around in my office looking for that traditional tarot deck. I got kind of excited because I have so many other decks in there that I really wanted to even pull out more cards just simply of the Fool deck and look at them just to see. So I'm just going to quickly browse through and just see if I can find a few more, just because it is interesting. And again, the more you're learning just one single card and taking some time, meditate on your card, carry it with you throughout the day. Just one single tarot card. Pull one in the morning, bring it with you throughout the day, put it in your purse. When you stop to take a bathroom break, pull out the card and ponder it for a moment. Think about it. Let yourself just get the feeling of that card, because as your mood changes throughout the day, so will the way the card is speaking to you. That's another piece to being a tarot card reader, is that you have to be highly flexible. We can't get stuck in the rigidity of feeling like we only can use the book definition of each card. Each card is meant to play with our deep, mysterious subconscious and to evoke a feeling. You take your state of mind that you're in, if there's a specific question at hand, and you bring it then forward into how the card, with its meaning that we understand from studying it, but also how that combines with your state of mind, the question at hand, and the way the card is making you feel in that particular moment, as well as how it aligns with other cards around it, which is why tarot can be endless. You can have endless messages from 78 cards for a lifetime, and the messages will never be repetitive. They will be unique to each unique moment, expanding along with you over time. Aha! Here is the Fool card of this deck. This is the back of this deck. This is an Asian tarot. I think it's titled the Asian Tarot, possibly. Again, I'm sorry I don't recall the names of my decks. This one has a whimsical, sort of wispy individual here who is... Their heart chakra is highly illuminated in the very center of their chest, or representing their light being. Can very much be representative, say, of the light energy that we bring into our birth experience, the soul's journey, starting anew in a new physical form. I love the illumination around this individual's head. This person has their eyes gently closed as well, and is holding sparkly sort of light in one hand and pouring it outward in another. Very often a symbolism in the Temperance card that we will see later on in another section. But the purity of this card is beautiful. There's what looks like waves in the background. There's beautiful land structures in water. This person seems like they're sort of between heaven and earth. Kind of sort of this concept of new birth, just coming into the physical realm from their light being, possibly embarking on the new in their journey. Interesting. Right. So if you know, that is the Fool card. A lot of talking. I mean, I don't even know. I've been on for quite a while just talking about this one single card in a deck of 78. But again, by doing this type of exercise, you'll always remember when you see the 0 when you're reading tarot and you realize that's the emptiness of the newness, the fresh start, the egg emptying out into either the number sequence that goes this way or the number sequence that goes that way. That new beginning, fresh starts. So I'm going to take the Fool card off the table. Where I want to go next are two cards that I can't really talk about one without talking about the other. And the reason that is these two cards make up the next two cards, number 1 and number 2, that come after the 0. The next two cards they make up a perfect yin yang. You almost can't have one without the other, is what I mean. They together create all that is. And so what I'm talking about here is the Magician card, and the High Priestess card. Again, this lighting, I got to move these guys off to the side a little bit over here. The Magician card and the High Priestess card. They are a pair. It doesn't mean when you're reading tarot that you cannot have one on the table without the other, but to completely understand either one of these cards, it's important that you recognize its mirrored counterpart. Much like we have the front of the moon, that's the part that we always see. It's illuminated when it's full. It's covered with a shadow when it's a new moon, but it's always the same face facing us. And then the opposite card would be the other side of the moon, the dark side of the moon, the other half that makes it a complete whole. You see, when we're only looking at the one side of the moon, it is still only half of the moon we're observing. And that is why when you're studying tarot, it's really important to take on the cards number 1 and number 2 as a pair so that you can understand how one complements the other in the story of the tarot. So we have the Magician. In many decks, it is titled the Magus. Oh, I found one of the Fools I hadn't pulled out of the original deck. This is very traditional. He's got his little stick. He's kind of reading a note, this guy. He's reading a note. He's just jolly walking along. This is from the Witches Tarot. And he is obviously just about to walk, off of the cliff. All of his worldly belongings in the backpack, or the little container hanging off a stick, very light of burden. Again, we would expect that from somebody who hasn't lived a lot of life yet. They're not carrying a lot of burdens. All right, so we have our Magician card and our High Priestess. So again, these two cards go hand in hand. They will come up separately in your tarot readings, sure. But as you begin to understand one, you will naturally, more easily understand the other half of the moon, knowing that together they make a complete thing. Ooh, there's so many of these. I'm just going to move this stuff up. Again, a lot of people become overwhelmed. They want to learn tarot and they suddenly think they have to memorize the meaning of every card. Every card will evoke a feeling for you. Like I said, study, but you don't have to memorize. When you're doing a psychic tarot reading, not just a tarot reading, but a psychic tarot reading, the meaning of the cards very often doesn't even come to play because the cards are giving you a feeling, a psychic feeling. A lot of people, when they're learning tarot, get so stuck on having a book with them that they have to reference the book or they have to immediately go to the book definition of the card in their mind that they're blocking their inner voice interpreting the way that card makes them feel. And they sometimes will second guess what their gut instincts are telling them because they're too afraid to let go and become the psychic tarot reader, not just a tarot reader. It's a big difference. And learning to let go of fear of failure, learning to delve in and have fun with it is a great way to overcome blockages when we become overwhelmed by trying to memorize tarot cards. Again, exercises like this are very good for you to understand the Fool's journey, the story of this little guy, because the top 22 cards are his story. That little fool that we just looked at for almost an hour, that one little guy is traveling forward now. And what the cards talk about is at the beginning of life, when our light body is manifested into a physical form, there are two reality worlds that we need to know. The first one is the material world, everything that we see around us, the physical world, our physical body, the air we breathe, the measurable everything, the planet, the universe, the matter, everything that has physical matter. All of it is represented in the Magician card. What another piece of the reality for the Fool's first step out into his new world, the birth into this world, is the unseen magical world, the intuitive world, the magical realm, the realm where the mysterious unknown occurs. Spooky science, I think, is what Einstein called it. Spooky science. I think, or weird science. Spooky science. That is represented, the intuitive natured world, the world that goes unseen, where all the mysterious magic is. All of that stuff is represented by the High Priestess. So you see the two cards together. The High Priestess, or the Magician, pardon me, comes first. We'll use these two. We have the Magician. Oop. This is someone who has very visible working knowledge of his physical realm. He's got every tool he might need. There is one of each of the suits of tarot. Again, much like a deck of playing cards, there are 4 suits in the rest of the tarot deck. And one of each of those items is on the desk in front of him. There's a staff, there's a coin or a disc, there's a chalice, and there's a sword. Those things are representing the 4 quadrants of our reality or our physical realm. That's why they are almost always represented in the Magician card. I gotta say, we're going to see several cards where we're not going to see these objects. But the reason they're in there is because this card incorporates all of the rest of the cards of tarot. Every single one of them. It holds the actual physical nature of a card alone in it, in its truth. This is science. This is the physical world. This is the earthly plane. This card represents the elements, everything measurable. And then we have its polar opposite, the other side of its perfect balance, is the High Priestess. The High Priestess is called that due for its knowledge in magical workings. This is very often represented of an individual standing between a column that is white and a column that is black, representing the standing in between, the shades of gray, the mysterious unknown. The white and the black are representing absolutes. And we have the representative of the character of the high priestess or high priest in some cards standing directly in the middle between the two absolutes, creating the mysterious unknown, all of the things in between the absolutes. That is why these two cards I consider to be a pair. In the higher 22 cards, there are 3 pairings in those 22 cards that, to me, to understand one, we must always understand the other for full, complete balance and understanding of our tarot deck. So here's another representation. We have the Magician card. He's also at Pathways. Remember the card from the last deck that we had the Fool. It'll be our Fool, the embarking on new beginnings. It is the card number 1 as well. We're still at a fresh start. But in front of him, he has all of the things. He's got the medical symbolism there, often also representing of higher knowledge, higher learning from the gods, learning from higher teachings. We have a chalice, a sword, a scepter, or a baton, and a large coin here. I like that the intertwining snakes are also represented in this card, very much speaking to history, written knowledge, all that's been known up until now, all the things that we could possibly study. I think it's well represented in that card by I think it's called the caduceus. I'm not sure if that's the right name for that medical. It's used in medical, but it was used well before medical symbolism in Sumerian, Babylonian times and Egyptian as well. That's when it started to become the symbolism, I believe, of medical. I'm not sure. But if you see, again, he's in a physical plane. There is representation of the earthly element around him. He's got pathways and rocks. He's got all the tools, the physical tools that he would need to kind of sort everything out in the rest of the tarot deck. He's got all of the trump cards, or the, say in a traditional playing deck of cards, the club, the spade, the diamond, and the heart. Each one of those are represented here at the base of his feet, the 4 suits of our tarot deck. And with the high priestess, the yin to his yang, or the yang to his yin, we have the purity of the white dress represented in innocence, or not being ensnared in anything that would stop the forward momentum of the intentions of this being. We have, again, the white column and the black column. We also, in this card, very wonderfully, have the individual descending down into what would be termed, if you were studying shamanism or lots of old practices of psychic work, the underworld, going into, in, say, Egyptian understanding of psychic work. The underworld is where the unseen, mystical, magical world is. Often that's where we go to meet our guides or to resolve conflicts on the surface of the physical world. We have to go into the mysterious unknown, the cave of the interior of our knowing. Again, we have the exterior world outside this doorway. We have this individual descending down into the stairwell. Beautiful white flowers, looks like lilies. Again, a sign of purity, coming with pure heart for the highest good, opening up the mysterious, mystical unknown and the magical worlds with the high priestess. In this card, I'm just going to look and see what she has in her hand. Honestly, it looks like a heart. or possibly a pomegranate. I'm not sure what that is she's holding in her hand, but I'm not too hung up about it. It seems important. I feel that it's a heart. I'm not sure, a human heart, carrying it in her hand. Powerful, powerful. Here we even have the artist. This is that neat deck where the artist was changing the words on the bottom of the card. We have the number 1 and 2 on the top, so we know that we're working with the Higher Arcane here. We have used the 0 card as our lead in. We have awareness written at the bottom with a very masculine symbolism, and that is, it shows the universe awake behind him. We have his crown chakra highly illuminated with fire coming from the top of his head. Fire being, of course, an element in the physical world. The image, often when we see circles of illumination around people's heads, is speaking to the fact that this is a magician. He is a master of his arts. He's mastered the physical realm. This is the reality that our fool is coming out into, are the absolutes in the natural world. This is the physical world. This is the mysterious unknown. This card says at the base of it, intuition. Speaking to, again, intuition is not an object. It's not something that we can go and buy at a store and bring home and slather on. It's something that is non-tangible, that we awaken inside of ourselves, our spirituality, love, our state of being is not a physical, tangible thing. It will always be represented by the mysterious unknown that walks through every one of the rest of the tarot cards as well. Not to say just because the tools of the suits are represented with the magician, that we are not also bringing, obviously, using tarot for divination or any psychic work, we are bringing the mysterious unknown with us to let these cards talk to this side of ourselves, the intuition, the non-physical side of ourselves, that instinct, that inner voice inside of us. Beautifully represented in this card, I think. In this deck, here we have our magician, and she has a book of knowledge. She has her chalice, her wand. We've got fire here on a candle. Wait, I'm going to put my glasses on. Yes, looks like she's got a little staff in her hand. We have a thame or knife or crystal. Not sure what that is. We have a candle. She's mastering her magical space. She's got whimsical, wispy dragons flying around her head, but she is definitely the magician in charge here. She is empowered. She has the book of knowledge in front of her. She is mastering her physical realm, her physical world. And we have the High Priestess in the next card. We have our, obviously, representing, standing between the dark and the light. She represents all that stands between absolutes, right? The mysterious unknown, that which is not measurable. The things that we feel, but we know exist, but we can't prove it, right? Those things. She's got a illuminated, looks like crystal ball or energy ball in her hand. She is older, which speaks of wisdom. When you see in tarot cards, aged beings versus youthful beings, it is a deep subconscious representation of wisdom or experience, right? The cards, everything about them is going to tweak and twang on your subconscious through symbolism. She is apparently looking like she is gazing into her crystal ball, a beautiful form of divination, possibly representing the psychic self or the empowerment of energy work with this ball of energy in her hand. Again, the power of the mind, the power of using energy for magic, not magic like we would see with a magician in a show, but magic like we might see in a ritual of empowered energy and working with that kind of magic. And then she has a staff standing with holding like a staff that is, again, speaking to her status as this high priestess here. This deck, this again is the Voodoo deck. Really fascinating. Works with hoodoo and voodoo. Amazing deck of cards. Our magician is represented by Dr. John. He is a magician, a magical magician in the religion of voodoo or hoodoo. I'm sorry if I don't know which one. I apologize to anyone who practices. I find the religions of hoodoo and voodoo absolutely fascinating area of study. And they are very similar to each other. One branched off of the other. But amazing, very, very powerful study of energy work to study the practices that are done in those lifestyles or religious or spiritual belief systems. Absolutely empowering. If you're somebody who is into energy work or magic or studying the practices of other techniques, other magical uses across the planet, is definitely an area of great study. I'm always open to discussion with anybody who might want to dialogue about those wonderful, mysterious things. This is Marie Laveau, and she is a magic worker, a high priestess. I'm not sure what they're called in that specific area of practice. But again, we have the masculine and the feminine. We have the doctor, like a witch doctor, who is maybe using the physical realm and spell casting through fire use or the element use, using and managing the physical realm to manifest the outcome. And we have this Marie, who is a gifted magic user, an intuitive, a psychic, that mysterious, again, unknown, the mysterious, mystical, unknown world represented in there. This deck is so bizarre and so weird, this Housewives Tarot. We have the Magician. I really don't understand what the artist was doing here, but we have a washing machine at his hands. He's standing in a cityscape, looking like a doof, definitely trying to dress dapper. When you see people in tarot clothed in different outfits, they are trying to present an image. When they are nude, it is because they have become so clear in who they are, they no longer need to cloak themselves in clothing, and they are presenting themselves without a need to wear a costume or convince us of something. Just a note to self when reading tarot and you see nudity in it. That's often it represents a liberation and a freedom of no longer needing to wear a disguise to show people who we want them to see us as. We become so comfortable in ourselves that we can, with reckless abandon, forget or let go of how we are presenting ourselves and just becoming and being, which is the ultimate goal. Which is why when we get to the very end of this 22 card journey, the World card is very often represented with nudity. The final 3 cards often in tarot have a lot of nudity in them of the Higher Arcane, and that is because you've illuminated, you've learned so much along the way, you've faced your monsters, you've faced yourself, you've learned and learned and learned, and you become so beautifully liberated that you can forego being overly concerned of how others perceive you. And that, again, is a hope that we all achieve in our life. This has got secret syrup written for their high priestess. How interesting. The mysteries of the universe are sweeter than you know, is what it says on the front of the syrup container. And I would say just that alone, that little blurb, that little sentence speaks to what the High Priestess card represents. There. Here we have a classic magician or wizard looking guy. In this deck of cards, the dragonflies represent one of the suits. We have chalices. There's a staff or a rod. We have a unicorn jumping out of the cup. And there looks like a lot of growth of plants and trees, and looks like the wing of a dragon or something behind this individual. Oh, it is a dragon. Yes, there's a dragon there. And what this again represents is the physical world and the science of it, the being able to master the physical world. The Magician card speaks to all that is, the mastery of it, the confidence and the mastery of the physical world, not hung up at all about the mysterious, intuitive unknown. Good night. Then we have the High Priestess card here, and she is holding a Torah. Many of the High Priestess cards will show her holding a scroll. It is a Torah. Again, early writings, way back before the traditional New Bible. The Torah are early writings. She is between a white column and a black column. She has a circle above her head speaking to wisdom and higher knowledge. She is wearing a beautiful 5-pointed star, magical symbolism for manifestation and balance, and protection hanging from her neck. She has the legs of a mermaid, which I find interesting. And I think that that is purposeful in this card to represent that she has mastery of both the earthly plane and the watery realms with her mystical wisdom and her ability to know. There's a lot of symbolism going on in here. The crescent moon, often we'll see the crescent moon. Sometimes it's under the foot, resting just under the foot of the High Priestess. And that is, again, a mastery. She is the psychic self is often represented through the magic of the moon magic. The intuition, the intuitive self, often represented through imagery of the moon. And the masculine self, at least in modern history, the masculine self is often represented through imagery of the sun. So again, we're talking about artists. This is a much more modern deck, and the artist decision of how they want to represent the very deep, very complex meaning of these cards. You know, leave it to Aleister Crowley to have been torn of so into the Magician card. I'm not surprised at all that for his Toth, Toth deck, again, a very common, very popular tarot deck, that he put two magicians in. Two very interesting Magician cards for Aleister Crowley's deck. Both of them chock-a-block full of symbolism and imagery. Both of them giving a very clear and confident concept to what is portrayed in the Magician card. Each of them stemming right out of the center of the deck, again speaking to mastery. This one is kneeling on the head of a Egyptian god. It looks like a Sphinx head, possibly. There are the tools of the tarot, the chalice, the sword, the coin. This one has fire. The double snakes on either side of both of the heads. Again, the caduceus, speaking to ancient knowledge, well beyond just the medical symbolism of the caduceus. When we go very far back in history, the caduceus is highly representative of secret knowledge. Knowledge, the workings of managing the physical world to get it to do our bidding and bend to our will. often a card very represented in people who are working to make sure that they are managing their world around them to get what they want the outcome to be. To me, I think that we always, again, in knowing which cards we're dealing with, we have to have balance. You can't just rule the mastery of the physical realm. You must also incorporate the mysterious unknown for full balance. And I think that this is sometimes what happens when we get megalomania or people who are trying to control the visible world and control everyone in it. I think that they have fallen so far beyond recognizing the balance, the other side of the moon, of the vices of the soul, or the story of the self, the expansion of the self, is to have forgotten the mysterious unknown, the magical world, the world that brings balance to too much of a good thing, right? We have to, it will find its natural center again at some point. So then we jump to the High Priestess card here in the Thoth deck. And this is a really very complex card. Again, it's not really well represented in this lighting, and I'm so sorry. I'm just getting used to this. Lots of neat symbolism in this card. There seems to be geometric or beautifully cut stones and crystals here, showing lots of sacred geometry at the very base of the card. There's a camel, which I find interesting, walking at the feet of the High Priestess. A camel is very representative of the physical realm, right? They have great endurance. They walk the sands. They need water, but not as frequently. They have this, they're very physically attached to their earth element, those giant feet. There's also what looks like a pineapple here and grapes. There seems to be sort of symbolism of the earthly plane down at her feet. And then she sits above it all on a throne. She is on like a cement throne. She is bringing all this vibration and harmonics and geometrics down upon the earthly realm, resonating swirls of what look like sound resonance or vibratory resonance going out, creating the ripple effect from her intention. The intention stemming from the chakras that are above the stomach or above the center of the chest. So we are speaking of the higher resonance from the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye, and the crown chakra, all being beautifully represented in this card as the chakras that are from here down speak to the physical world, the physical known world, our daily struggles, our struggles with our body, our creative side, our physical realm, and then we go up into the more emotional, spiritual realms as we go up the torso in the chakra system. And this is, I think, very artfully represented in Aleister Crowley's Thoth deck. We go over to the Harvest Tarot. And again, similar, the more we start to look at these, the more we start to look at the same card by several different artists, the more it intrigues the mind to remember what they mean, where they are in the story of the Fool's journey. Again, the Fool has just embarked on his journey, and the first thing that he encounters is basically the reality of life as a human being. We are going to contend with the reality of the sciences, of the physical world, all of the things that are measurable, and then the truth of the mysterious unknown. Again, even heralding back to what is the mystery of birth and why are we here and what are we here to do? Those answers we will find by finding balance between both these worlds, the physical world and the mysterious unknown. We are driven by our heart to follow our bliss, to illuminate for the highest good, and to make a difference in this world But if we do not learn a mastery of the physical world, take care of our bodies, work hard, take care of our environment, make sure that we have a roof over our head, that we're safe, we're educating ourselves, our role in this world, how we identify ourselves with other people around us, our neighbors, our family, that is all represented in the Magician card. The mysterious, magical unknown, the unlimited scape of that. If you notice in the physical world card, we have lots of symbolism here of earthly things. In this artsy space behind him, we have trees, we have a bear, there is what looks like a moose or a elk. There is beautiful looking like a prayer or a tribal group sitting together in front of a fire. We have the moon and mountains. We have a treescape and sky. We have what looks like a sunset or sunrise over hills, more tree and sky, the moon again, trees. And that is all. If we look at it, then we have the symbols in this deck. Our 4 suits are pipe, arrows, I do believe grain or coins, and bowls. This deck is still, even though the suits are different, we're going to experiment with them. We're going to compare them so that you can learn that whether your deck has its image represented by coins, or if they want to call them discs, or if they want to have swords or fire or some other kind of rod or something, and they're changing the title of the oh my gosh, the suit, the 4 suit, to know that you can learn whether or not the artist has made it a certain way or a different creative way by learning the structure of tarot, how tarot was built, what the underlying structure of it is. Then you can really enjoy reading tarot that is incredibly artsy, very different and off the beaten path from anything traditional. And you can still get the subliminal, deep, subconscious messaging calling forward from your psychic self inside through symbolism. Okay. Oh, yeah. So this is full of the physical world. And then there's water, lots of beautiful water. There's rays from the light. She's sitting at a moving body of water. I want you to know that water often represents, even though it is one of the elements in the physical arena, the symbolism of water in your deep subconscious many times will speak to psychic information. It will speak to your mysterious subconscious. And when wanting to work within the magical realms of leaving the physical realm and embarking over into the mysterious psychic realm, whether you want to do astral projection or if you want to do mediumship or any of those, incorporating some water sometimes into your practice, either to stop you from being out there and bring you back to the earthly plane, or to assist you in getting to the plane. There are lots of ways to use water to expedite your psychic work or your healing work or your astral projection or things like that. And we can talk about that at another point as well. Wonderful thing to work with. This, I'm not going to lie, again, we're back to that weirdo, freaky deck that I have that is just so strange. Our magician is this very powerful, strong, standing very tall, looking directly at us, confident, strong female figure holding a dish with a snake going up her arm. And it looks like the snake is very happily about to dine from the dish. She has ribbons flowing off of her. She is there's harvest symbolism, often speaking to the earthly plane when we see harvest imagery, when we see wheat or grains or cornucopias. Know that your artist is trying to bring you into the physical realm, the worldly realm, the earthly plane, the element of earth itself, often represented in those symbolisms. And then we have our high priestess over here holding a book. I can only assume would be the book of knowledge. Her hands are in a very pure, receptive position, much like we would see, which we like to achieve, is this receiving position through prayer or meditation, in working with any of our deep meditative techniques. And sitting in our lotus position, we have our hands in the receptive position. You often see that with imagery of Kuan Yin or Buddha symbolism with the outstretched hands, or sometimes the one hand partially curled, which is what we have here. The keeper of wisdom, the holder of knowledge, receptive. Again, we have receptors in our hands. Beautiful, awake, healing chakras in the palms of our hands. Beautiful spinning little healing orbs right in there that heat up just by talking about it. We can rub our hands and heat them up. We start talking about it. It's the reason when you bump your knee, you immediately put your hand on it. You cover it. You're healing it. You're removing some of the discomfort through physical touch. Very important, especially right now while we're all so separate from each other, to never forget the importance of physical touch. Our hands are healing tools. Being able to pet our pets, being able to receive touch through the palms of our hands and give touch is incredibly good for our immune systems, for our psychology, for the way our brain works, for the chemicals in our brain, for healthy chemicals to be released. It's one of many reasons that animals are so comforting to us. It's the reason that being isolated without human touch has a very measurable effect on our well-being and our emotional well-being and our immune systems. That's why when somebody's in the hospital or somebody is not feeling well, if we can go be with them, put our hands on them, gently touch them, not only giving them the love and the companionship of our presence, but to physically put our hands upon them and let our little healing pads, our healing tools, heat up and work with them is so important. And to never forget that if you are someone who is isolated, it's all right to find opportunity to, like I say, pet an animal, a tree, even if you aren't around a human being. If you do have somebody you can be around, to simply ask them to to just put your hands in my hands. Just let me rest my hands in your hands, or let me just hug you, hold you, touch you for a moment, to let those beautiful, beautiful, beautiful energies jump back and forth between us through the palms of our hand, helping us release very healthy healing chemicals in our brain. Very good for our bodies and our immune systems. And never forget that. Often elderly people aren't touched so much anymore. They're not, babies. Everybody wants to hold a baby. They're so cute. But then as people age, you'll notice they don't get physically touched as much. Even just when talking to someone, resting your hand on their arm or their shoulder, if it's in their comfort zone, obviously, you're sending them healing. You're sending them beautiful vibratory energy through the palms of your hands. Or to never hesitate if you need physical touch without being creepo, without being weird. It's all right to ask for a hug, or to ask if we can just pet someone's dog, or pet your own dog, or hold life is very good for us, and it's good for our immune systems. It's very good for our brains. Our depression will decrease. Won't go away completely maybe, but it can decrease. We are releasing incredible chemicals through our brain through touch alone. Just touch alone. Forget compliments and self-love. Then we're really cooking. Okay, so here we have a Magician card. I love the empowerment of this deck. This is, I don't remember what it's called, but it's a beautiful, strong, feminine empowered deck. I love it very much. Not that I'm anti-masculine empowerment, but I really do love a lot of the strong feminine decks of cards as well, with just such wonderful reminders of our limitless strength as females and women. So we have our high priest, or our magician here. We've got a wooden table. We have all of the elements, the four, suits of our tarot deck are on the table. We have our chalice, our sword, we have our staff leaning against the table, and a coin on the table, holding up a orb of knowledge and empowerment, having visible mastery of the entire physical realm. This is a confident card, again, speaking to all measurable matter. And then we have our High Priestess card. She's beautifully sitting here on a throne, very peaceful. As I said, in many of the High Priestess cards, she is holding a scroll. In this situation, she's holding... Yes, she has the Torah scrolled. It's open. It's open on, and there's one of the sides of the scroll is on this side, and it's open across her lap on that side. And she's holding a quill pen, like a quill pen, a feather. To me, I feel the artist is trying to symbolize that she's the writer of the magical word, right? The writer. She can write. She can add to the magical world, the magical documents, right? Being able to add to it. She is sitting in front of a beautiful, looks like tapestry, but through the tapestry, it looks like I want to jump through the tapestry into a whole nother magical world through that tapestry. She's holding what looks like a potion in her hand. The potion, the bottle top is off of it, and it looks like it has energy escaping from it. The symbolism of the circle on the head, as I've said several times, is a symbol of wisdom and knowledge, higher knowing, higher learning, often represented by illumination over the head. You'll see that a lot in religious art. You'll see images of saints or of Jesus with a golden circle around the head or over the head, and it does speak to illumination, having followed your spirituality to a point of being illuminated. It takes work to get there. We have these two, both of them highly illuminated. And I like one of the powerful symbolisms here. I'll talk about it. We have our magus, meaning magician. He has Hebrew lettering on either side. Again, speaking to ancient knowledge, right? That's what this is representing. We have written in several different languages about magicians and writing, which I do believe is a lot in French here. And some drawings, it looks like. This is a very focused individual looking directly at us. His eyebrows look like the wings of some kind of majestic bird coming right out of the center of his head where his major mental focus is. Again, representing his mastery of the sciences and mathematics and mastery of the physical world around. His eyes are wide open, and we have symbolism, I do believe, of Taurus here, and I'm not, again, sure on that. I need to look that up. We have as our complement opposite card over here, we have the High Priestess, and if you notice, her eyes are shut. His are wide open, hers are gently shut. The reason hers are shut is because she is not seeing through her physical eyes. She is seeing through her third eye, her pineal gland, deep down in the base of your neck. It starts in your, like the third eye chakra is beautiful purple. It goes in through your forehead and comes down at an angle, cuts through your pituitary gland and comes out the back side of your head. It is the third eye chakra, and it is how we see with eyes closed. That is a line that is written in the Bible, is with eyes closed you shall see, or to see with your eyes closed. And there is a lot of speak of the eye that sees while closed, and that is the third eye. Your heart is leading you. Your instincts, your gut feelings, your intuition is represented through that type of description. The eye that sees while closed always is your third eye, which is very interesting in its own nature. The pituitary gland has ocular fluid in it. It has cones and rods in it. It has all the makings of an eye, like one of our actual eyes to the front of our head. Our pituitary gland deep, deep inside our skulls near the base of the back is actually made almost exactly like one of our eyes, our physical, our front of face eyes. And nobody really knows why that is. What is this thing in here that has rods and cones in it that are trying to pick up on light? And the theory is that light, energy is light. That energy and that energy vibrations, and that the different vibrations can create light inside of our third eye. Let us see the light from within. And I think it's always been very confusing to people because they get hung up on light being only that which seems to be what illuminates our exterior world. But light is energy, right? And that energy can get in and through and to our beautiful pineal gland. And we can absorb light that way. It's pretty powerful and neat stuff. If you really get into ever wanting to study about the pituitary gland, you'd be shocked and blown away at how much symbolism of this thing that looks like a little pine cone is throughout history and all over the world. It's heavily represented in the Vatican. It is a pine cone on the top of the staff of the head dudes. There is a gigantous pine cone sculpture in the Vatican gardens as well. But if you go back in through cave drawings and ancient writings and almost all symbolism of almost all cultures for almost all of time that we are aware of, is symbolism of this interesting pine cone looking thing, speaking to illumination and higher knowledge. And some of the secret societies and up in upper levels of trainings and learnings in secret societies are bring forward the truth and the awareness of our pineal gland and our psychic abilities and our ability to work with our pituitary gland, cleansing it, clearing it, exercising it, and working with it. And that knowledge, unfortunately, has been around us, carried in front of us, but not taught to us, right? It's been kept from us. And it's something that in learning tarot, you begin to exercise your pituitary gland. You begin when working with anything psychic or trusting yourself or paying attention to your dreams or trusting that there are many layers of reality happening all at once, that you're tapping into the powers of that pituitary gland of yours. And you're able to do out-of-body experiences. You're able to do long-distance healings. You're able to traverse into the outer limits of the physical world or the mysterious psychic world. And that is our portal. That is our ship to travel in. It's within our own head. It's our pituitary gland. And it is highly spoke of in the High Priestess cards of tarot. And then I think we go to this final two here. Beautiful symbolism. Not sure if the camera's going to pick up on it too much. We have a gentleman, a wonderful, beautiful, looks like wolf-like dog here with him. He is wearing travel clothes. He's got a cloak on his head. He's got a walking staff. He's got beautiful, looks like wings of hawk, or it looks like hawk or bird of prey kind of on his shoulders, carrying him. Obviously, he would have to, he's old looking, so he's got a lot of experience and wisdom to have collected the strength or the energy. Often many practices of the past and even some now will wear the the items that belonged to animals, to channel the energy of those animals, to honor the spirit of those animals, to help us in our magic workings or our spiritual expansion by relating to or communing with symbolism or parts of animals, hopefully not harming them to get those items. Hopefully universe would find those animals, have you be at the right place at the right time to receive those gifts from those animals without hurting or harming them. And then we have our high priestess sitting on her throne. She sits still because she does not need to be physically moving. Remember, her action is from her internal story, her internal workings, the workings of her inner voice, the magical, mysterious world from within. She has her hands clasped, making sort of a symbolism near her chest in this card. We have illumination showing up over her head. And it looks like she has fairies on her shoulder. How beautiful in this card. Yes, she has like little helpers around her, looking like they're from the magical realms. Definitely speaking to the mysterious, amazing multiverse concept that we are able to find or traverse back and forth in through our psychic self, represented by the mysterious balance of the unknown world. Okay, so in just looking at the very first 3 cards of the 22 card story of the Fool's Journey, we've only looked at 3 cards, but I hope that it's helped you understand what those 3 cards mean, why it is that the little fool on the very beginning of his journey has to encounter these 2 truths, because these 2 truths, everything else is built on top of these 2 truths. He starts his journey, and the very first knowing of his story is the physical realms and all that they encapsule, as well as the mysterious, magical, mystical, intuitive world. And that's the reality that the little fool is birthed into when he begins and embarks on his journey. And in the next section, we'll dive into the 3 more cards, maybe 4. I'll lay them out and I'll compare them and we'll take a good look at them. I hope all of you are having a really good night. I enjoyed chatting with you. I enjoyed giving a run at this and just seeing how it was going to work. This is one of the things that I do when I get a new deck of tarot is I compare it to other tarot decks. I have so many decks. This is just a small sampling. I have shelves and shelves of decks. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I've been collecting tarot. I've been gifted tarot. I've gone and traveled to amazing places. I've had people travel and get me tarot. I also read traditional playing cards. I read magic cards for psychic divination, if you can believe that. I have a whole lot of magic cards for that. I read postcards. And that's just of the cards, angel cards, spirit cards, soul cards, native spirit cards, native medicine cards, animal medicine cards. There's so many different directions you can go. But for this little area of study, we're going to work on the structure of tarot so that you can get a working knowledge of it and really embark on tarot feeling confident about it and not overwhelmed trying to memorize the meaning of every card. Better yet is to learn the structure of tarot, why it was made the way it was, what the structure of it is, so that you can trust your intuition while knowing sort of where you are and within the structure of tarot while working with tarot. I hope you have a great night. Thank you for joining me.